Hi, good evening. Thank you for joining us. My name is Faye Souza. We've decided that we will bring you proper full panel discussions on matters that are of true importance. And do we ever have a matter of true importance right now? There is a product that has been launched in the market called Coronil. This is a product launched by the company Patanjali and by its promoter, Mr. Ramdev. Now, and this is what happened. So last Friday, Ramdev launched the product in the presence of the health minister and Minister of Road and Transport, Nitin Gadkari. In the background of these three gentlemen was a poster that effectively said that the World Health Organization has given this product a certification. Now, after that, the World Health Organization stepped up and actually clarified that it had done no such thing. But what has happened now is the Indian Medical Association, which is an association of doctors, has put out a statement and expressed its, I quote, shock and dismay at this blatant lie of the WHO certification. Now, the association has put out a 2-page note in which this really comes after the WHO cleared its clarification, but it also pulled up the health surveys across the whole country. Being a modern medicine doctor, how ethical is it to promote such an unscientific product? It also went on to effectively ask that if a product like this can be, in fact, used to fight COVID, why is the government spending 35,000 crore rupees on a vaccination? That's the question asked by the Indian Medical Association. In the latest development on this story now, the Maharashtra government has said that this particular product will be banned in the state of Maharashtra and cannot be sold until it has proper certification. And this is the State Home Minister Anil Deshmukh said just a couple of hours ago. So the reason why we're having this discussion, and someone just asked me this question, so let me clarify it for the audience as well, is because if this is a question of life and death, really, we need to examine, like we have talked about all of the other medications that was launched during the last 1 year, the vaccinations that are being released in the market, we have to talk about what kind of research has gone into it, what kind of clinical trials have gone into it, and what difference will this product make, what is in it, for example, what is it made of, because people are likely to go out and take it. And you should know as the audience, as if you're going to take it and assume that you are now protected, you should know whether or not this will actually work. So to help me answer these questions, joining me this evening are doctors, Shahid Jamil, who's a virologist, Dr. Rakesh Mishra, Director for the Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology, Dr. Sanjay Nagral, who is a surgeon. Also, Murli Neelkantan, who is the principal, who is let me just call him the super lawyer, who understands pharmaceutical law better than anybody else in the country, and is always very kind to join us in these conversations. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We unfortunately couldn't find anybody to defend Patanjali in this conversation. Putting it out there for anyone who's going to be seeing it on our chat window. But let me take this piece by piece. Dr. Mishra, I will start with you first. We've had conversations about trials and things like that, but simply from what you've read so far, could you explain to us, if you've been able to understand it, what this product has in it and on what basis it's being launched in this market?
So what I know is this is a plant extract of some 2-3 plants, ashwagandha and few other things I don't remember. But plant extract is very complex thing. You can't say what there will be thousands of compounds of various kinds, and considering there is no proper quality control or benchmark of what are the constituents that define a product, it's very difficult to figure out what is there in it. And but that doesn't mean that all plant products or all such means are not useful. But making a specific claim for such an important issue like corona at this point requires really thorough test. We should go through proper RCGM, proper DCGI, what the system we have in the country, and then go through proper trials and then announce that it is this way. I'm not sure if all the process has been followed, and this has gone through the safety, whether it's safe for the people. Maybe if it is plant product is used regularly, maybe it is safe. Well, is it effective? Is there an evidence against the virus that it can do that? I'm not sure. And whether the sufficient number of the people have been tested, I mean, they tried in this with proper placebos. I do not know. Maybe other panelists will have better understanding of those. And that is why these things should be taken with a pinch of salt. And I'm not sure if announcements is one thing in the news and or in the release of a product, but whether is it legally certified to be sold as a product, whether a physician can recommend this as such is something which I don't think it crosses those lines and qualifies for that. So I would, although didn't ask, but I think there is a lot of value in our traditional medicine, and but these kinds of premature, maybe I'm little bit overstepping announcements do injustice to a lot of traditional knowledge that we have. So we should look at it in a much broader perspective than just somebody trying to push
Yeah.
something.
In fact, I'm just going to share this on the screen right now. I'm reading this out of the Live Mint, which basically says Patanjali claims that this is the first, and I'm quoting, evidence-based medicine for COVID-19. It also claims that Mr. Ramdev has released a scientific research paper on the first evidence-based medicine for COVID-19. I don't know who's read this research paper, though. Anyone on the panel? Does this hold muster? To what a research paper needs to look at? Has this been made public? Has anyone seen it?
Yeah, I have it in front of me right now.
Yes, Doctor.
It's a paper that's published in a journal called Phytomedicine on the 4th of February. And in this paper reports a clinical trial, randomized placebo-controlled pilot clinical trial on the efficacy of Ayurvedic treatment regime for COVID-19 positive patients. They say this clinical trial was carried out at the Department of Medicine in the National Institute for Medical Sciences and Research, Jaipur, which I believe is a private hospital and medical center. Each tablet contains 1 gram of Giloy Ghanvati Tinospora cardifolia and 2 grams of Swasari Ras and 0.5 each of Ashwagandha and Tulsi. Patients were treated twice per day for 7 days. So that's what this is about. And then they tested people by RT-PCR, and they looked at some serum levels of some cytokines, interleukin-6, TNF-alpha, and C-reactive protein on day 1 and day 7 of the study. So just 2 time points, day 1 and day 7. And they claim that by day 3, 71% of treated people and 50% of placebo recovered. Treatment group witnessed 100% recovery by day 7, while it was 60% in the placebo group. So I've just read from the abstract, but this paper has a lot of problems, lot of flaws in terms of reporting of information, in terms of how the data is presented and how the confidence intervals are missing. So for example, I'll just give you 2 or 3 examples of the problems. One of the reference they make is about Ayurvedic medicines effective against 2006 outbreak of chikungunya in India. And they quote a paper by Girija and Sivan. That is erroneous because that paper actually reports on a New York banker who recovered from COVID-19 by taking Ayurvedic medicine prescribed remotely from Chennai. So that's a wrong information. The viral clearance curve, the Kaplan-Meier curves, were really, they used this to artificially construct a binary outcome meaning yes or no of event rates. But we clearly know that in clinical trials, that's not what happens. No confidence intervals are shown. Also, there's a lead time bias, which means that they are enrolling patients that are largely asymptomatic. Then they are considering day one as the day they screen them. But somebody may actually be infected 5 days before that, 6 days before that, and that's not taken into account. So there are a lot of flaws like that, in the paper, and I can go on and on. There are many people have actually commented on this at a site which is called PubPeer. PubPeer is a site where fellow scientists actually look at your paper and comment on the things that they don't understand about it, or if they see data flaws, data duplication, all that. So there's a lot written on this actually.
I just want to point out this one thing, that when the health minister was speaking at this press conference for the launch of Coronil, he said that there's no reason now for any doctor to hesitate prescribing Coronil for patients infected with COVID, that the research trial is now done and published, he declared, and results show a clear positive result. Now, how dangerous is that? Dr. Nagral, as as a doctor, would you recommend Coronil? Do you think it's really dangerous for the health minister, given the fact that he's a doctor himself, he's a minister, he represents the government, to make a statement like this?
Right. So I think, Faye, let me just start by saying that, of course, I'm not a Ayurveda expert. A lot of my patients ask me whether they should use Ayurvedic treatment when I tell them I can't do much for their problem. And I say that it's your choice. I cannot stop you. And Ayurveda and allopathy have coexisted in this country. I also want to put it on the table, Faye, because I think this is what often comes up, that whilst we'll analyze this study, let me say that there has been a lot of bad science done in allopathy also in the COVID times. Very poor studies have been done. So let's put that on the table. But having said that, I think we need to understand the chronology. And that is this. That basically in sometime in June, July, Ramdev and company went all over town saying that they have this fantastic drug. And they actually appeared on television, and there were all sorts of insights into how they prepare it, etc. And they already actually had made up their mind. If you see those clips, they had actually made up their mind that this works. But then there was a pushback and uproar. And everyone said, oh, Lou, you can't do this. You have to get it published. You have to get it peer reviewed. And therefore, what has happened in the last 5 months is they have spent this time, they have chosen a journal. If I was doing a COVID study, Faye, which is this great drug, I'm not sure whether I would choose phytomedicine. I mean, most COVID studies are usually published in much more reputed journals. But having said that, they chose this journal. And I think now that the paper is published, they decided that this is a good time to get it back on the agenda, to get it back into people's consciousness. Now, of course, they have raised the stakes by trying to connect it to WHO, and luckily WHO called it out. And also the fact that 2 union cabinet ministers are present in the ceremony. Now that's, that's endorsement. And that's what is really worrying and disappointing, because well, somebody has got a drug, they publish it, they can go to town about it. But if you have 2 cabinet ministers next to you in the launch, that's a completely different level of, the stakes that you're raising. I think what it also does is actually gives a bad name to good Ayurvedic research that is being done in this country by good scientists. So always be doubtful of those who overstate the case. And those who say 100%, by the way, Dr. Jamil said 100%. 100% in science is always doubtful.
Right.
So I think the study has already been taken apart by Dr. Jamil, but I think it's much more than that.
Yeah. No, but Dr. Nagral, the reason, and this is fundamentally the reason why I'm doing this conversation, Krishnamurthy D has written in this thing saying, but Coronil will not have any side effects. Won't the side effect of taking this mean that people will think that they are free of COVID? and a virus that can actually kill you?
Right. So first of all, I think it is a myth that Ayurvedic drugs don't have side effects. Let me share this with you. I don't know about Coronil, but I am somebody who's involved in the treatment of liver diseases. And we see lots of patients, well documented, who have had liver failure, liver damage due to what they have taken as an Ayurvedic drug. Now, what sort of drug, metals, etc. So to say that there are no side effects is completely untrue. I think what is dangerous is that Ayurveda is popular in this country for maybe a good reason, available, cheap, low cost, traditional. But that also means that people may take it and have side effects which will not be documented. So I think it's a very dangerous situation.
Murli is with us as well. Murli, this clearance that this Coronil has received, the approval that it has received. And I remember the last time we spoke, you talked about how you were questioning how the Serum Institute of India began manufacturing its vaccine without an approval, because you said it's not legal to manufacture anything without an approval. In that structure of legality, where does this fit?
Well, actually, we had this discussion in July last year when the drug, I can't call it a drug, when this thing was launched. And the issue remained there that they had approval from the state FDA.
Yes.
And that continues. Immediately after we had that discussion, we had the Ayush Ministry putting out a notice saying, please beware, we've heard somebody producing Coronil COVID drugs, and this is not the proper way to do it. They issued an advisory earlier in April which said, you need to have a trial. And the Ayush Ministry actually has guidelines for trial. So they issued it in 2018. Now, this, from what we've read and what is on the CTRI website, doesn't conform to any of those principles set out by the Ayush Ministry itself in its guidance for trials for Ayurvedic drugs. So that's your first problem, that you announce it in July, then you are told by the government that you need to conduct trials because that is what the April notification said. Then you go off and conduct this trial. All the time you've been still selling it. It's not been off the market. Now you conduct this trial with actually 50 participants. So this thing was given to 50 people and 50 in the placebo arm. There is no understanding of how they came up with this 100 is enough. The Ayush Ministry's guidelines themselves say that 100 is insufficient. So you shouldn't be making claims based on 100 participants. But the challenge really is who issues this WHO scheme CPP. In India, it is issued by state FDA. So the same chaps who issued the approval for the manufacture of it have themselves issued the CPP. Now, it's called the WHO CPP because the scheme for it, which is national regulators issuing the certificate of pharmaceutical product, was set up by the WHO. So the scheme is called a WHO scheme only because the idea originated from the WHO and it has guidelines on it. But it doesn't mean that the WHO approves it. All it means is some state FDA has issued this certificate. Now, what can you do with this certificate? Frankly, state FDA issuing this certificate is completely worthless. It will only help Ramdev sell his stuff in India. No other country is going to use this CPP and say, therefore, it is approved in our country. So this is all PR for India, perhaps for Nepal, but not much further than that. It's not as if you can export this drug to the European Union and the European Medical Agency will say, oh, great, you got a CPP from India. Please sell it in our country, in the European Union. So yes, it is authorized for manufacture. It's authorized for sale by the state FDA. I don't think it meets the Ayush Ministry's own guidelines on clinical trials for Ayurvedic drugs. But the background that you saw in that press meet suggests that it's a WHO scheme. And yes, it's misleading, but it's not wholly inaccurate.
It's not wholly inaccurate. So here's the question then. Dr. Jamil, would you caution people against taking this? would you tell viewers, citizens, patients that there's not enough information here?
Well, see, the point is, if you care about taking a drug that has been proven through clinical trials to be effective, then you should not be taking it because it's clearly not the case. But there are millions of people in this country who are taking this portion or that portion without any understanding, with anecdotal references. They will continue to do what they want to do. What I worry about is that somebody taking a thing like this and then abstaining from COVID appropriate behavior, becoming infected and transmitting it to others. So that's what I'm more worried about. A friend of mine, when I sent him this information, he said, yeah. The only thing right about Coronil is the nil part. Trial was conducted and Coronil was used as a placebo in it. It's 100% effective as a placebo. So that was his comment. That's real. That's my real worry, that people will take it thinking that they are now protected. They won't get the virus, but they could get the virus. It could harm them, and they could be transmitters. That's my worry.
In fact, I mean, also, this has effectively been recommended for someone who is tested positive.
That's
I mean,
right.
Would we have a situation where people test positive and take this product instead of actually going to a doctor and, checking their stats and their vitals and managing the situation? That would be a far more dangerous thing, right?
It would be, yes, absolutely.
It actually then brings us to question, like Murli quite rightly said, brings us to question the role of the government in all of this. Murli, I can see your Nataraj pencil. I raise you a Reynolds pen. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Faye, the difficulty with the CPP is that it is certifying quality, safety, and efficacy. That to me is the worrying part. Until now we said, it's some state FDA, it can't do much damage, it must be safe. Now you're certifying not just quality and safety, but also efficacy. And to me, therefore, you have this concern that people will think, hey, here is the government, the head of the WHO, which the minister is, telling us that the WHO now, under its scheme, has this certificate, and the product has the certificate which confirms quality, safety, and efficacy of this product. Now, what more do you want? To me, therefore, it leads into the behaviors that we've discussed before, that people will think they're immune if they take this, which means they won't take precautions, or if they're infected, they'll think they'll be cured by this and continue to infect other people. So that's the scary part in it. And this makes that worse with the CPP certificate.
Dr. Nagral, what do you recommend at this point? I mean, other than just cautioning our audience members not to take it, or to talk to their parents about it, talk to their
Well, of course, as just Dr. Jamil and others said, I would certainly recommend against taking it. But, Faye, there's one more aspect to this, which is that what you're going to see now, tomorrow, if people see, people watch this discussion, is there's going to be an attack on us saying that we are all arrogant, modern medicine people who are against the tradition of this country, blah, blah, blah. So that's the narrative, and it's a very effective narrative. So what I'm really actually looking at, so it's good that the Indian Medical Association has called it out, but I think, what we also need to see is some people from Ayurved standing up and saying that, look, Ayurved also needs to be, Ayurvedic research is being done, good work, and it needs to be better. I think that's what we need, because otherwise there's this trope of, you guys are all, modern medicine, and, you are going to kill Ayurved, we are competitors. This is already must be there, and it's soon going to come up. So I'm just saying that it's a very deadly concoction. And, COVID is a very tempting bandwagon financially. It's a multi-million-dollar industry, and this gentleman knows how to make his money, right? I mean, he's not some low-key Ayurvedic doctor who is doing service to people. Yeah, he's built an empire on this. So it's a part of a well-calculated financial plan.
In fact, I'm looking at this right now online. There is a Patanjali Coronil kit, which includes an immunity booster being retailed for 1,090 rupees per kit. This is not cheap. Dr. Mishra? This is potentially dangerous. Yes, go ahead.
I think this probably brings the whole issue in the domain of criminality, that you are selling something which is not proven for it to, first of all, to give people something which doesn't mean. And in situation like this, people may trust and get into worse because they didn't go for other alternative, better options that are available. So I think this is something very, very serious, and I'm really surprised. I'm really ignorant of the process. How can publishing something in journal makes it a drug? That is a scientific journal. Whatever Shahid mentioned, peer analysis, it will face its consequences. But publishing anything in any journal doesn't make anything as a drug. There is a process for that, and there are agencies who recognize it as a drug. And I don't think any doctor can legally prescribe this as a drug against, as far as I understand, based on a press conference or based on a publication in a journal. There are a process. DCGI is there, and there is a proper thing in place. So I think it's very dangerous. And as Dr. Nagral said, it also does damage to the otherwise serious work that is being done. I mean, many things are being done from our traditional medicine, which is hundreds of years of trial in a way that has been going on, that can be put into scientific validation and can be then used. And these things do harm to that process. I don't know. I think this is something which should be, there should be more action than just a newspaper. I mean, IMA has said so. I think that is already a very strong reason for somebody to challenge it legally and get it withdrawn.
In fact, it's already begun. Kumara has written on our chat window saying there seems to be some caustic agenda to belittle all Indian traditions. Ramdev may have gotten it wrong, but that doesn't mean the whole system of holistic medicine should be targeted. I don't believe anybody is talking about the whole system of holistic medicine. In fact, we're specifically only talking about this drug, more so because it has to do with COVID, and COVID is life-threatening. So it's really a space where we shouldn't be taking any risks at all. I mean, consider how much poking and prodding we did when it came to the vaccines themselves. I mean, there's no reason why anybody should be above scrutiny when it comes to COVID. But Budli, the question that Dr. Mishra just asked about, someone needs to challenge this legally. At the end of the day, I remember a time when the government said that spreading any sort of misconception and information about COVID will be punishable by law. And here you have two cabinet ministers actually endorsing a product that, might not have actually been through the process. I don't understand. Are they now guilty of their own, sort of rules?
They are actually. And when we discussed this in July last year, I'd said there's two big problems that I foresee. One is that it's a false claim. It's a misleading claim about a drug. Now, that's an offense under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act. And the state FDA can prosecute. So I hope when the minister for the Maharashtra state government said that he intends to ban it, he will make the obvious next step and say, the only way I can ensure that this doesn't happen, that there is no sales. Don't forget, many of these sales are online. And what you saw perhaps is the drug being sold online for 1,000 whatever rupees. So you can actually buy this online. So there's no reason to say that we will not prosecute. You should prosecute. That's the only way people will stop buying online. People will stop selling online, or at least not sell in this state. So it's clearly covered by the Drugs and Cosmetics Act. The state FDA can prosecute. It also falls foul of the Magic Remedies Act. Now, this is not a new legislation. It's been there for a very long time. And anything that claims to be a medicine, and this clearly claims to be a medicine because in the definition of medicine, it says cure, mitigate, treat, or prevent any disease. And that claim is made by Coronil. It's clearly a false claim. So there is a remedy under the Magic Remedies Act for prosecution under that. So I hope the government in Maharashtra and other states actually takes it on and says, okay, there's no point putting out a press release saying we are going to ban it unless you take the next step and enforce it, which is prosecute those who are selling it. The ban is a meaningless exercise.
You know, the dangerous bit here, of course, is that this product has been available for sale now since they launched it the last time. What this press conference with the two ministers was attempting to do was convince doctors, like on our panel, to recommend it to their patients. So this was actually a promotional event. So it really was an endorsement by the ministers. Dr. Chabil, do you believe that the IMA statement will be enough to caution citizens and doctors about this product?
Well, yeah, I think doctors who listen to IMA will listen to it. But there's going to be a large portion of the public that will remain gullible, that doesn't understand how clinical trials are done, that doesn't really understand the value of numbers and confidence intervals and error bars. Those are details that give you confidence in the numbers. They don't understand it. They will simply go on it by faith and the fact that some important people launched it, and that would be really unfortunate because our health ministry is doing so much good in the fight against COVID.
Absolutely. So really, it's a question of cautioning people because this is a dangerous situation. If there isn't anything else from our panel, we'll wrap up here because fundamentally what has happened is a product has been launched. We're calling it a product, but it has been launched as a cure, which is what makes it dangerous. Without the proper process being followed, with claims that are being made that are fundamentally false. It's been called out by the Indian Medical Association for being a shockingly unethical, fabricated, unscientific product. We will attempt over the next couple of days to bring in maybe voices from the Ayurvedic world to also talk about it and tell us how this makes them feel and if this is something that they endorse as well. But for now, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us and answering these questions and for making time for us this evening. For our viewers, of course, thanks for watching this. Share this conversation because of the quality of the voices on this panel. Share it with people who need to be cautioned. That's the service that we can do at this point. Also, look out for our news bulletin. It's going to be up in a few minutes, but we're going to aim for 9 o'clock. It's going to be up at 9 o'clock. We have our news bulletin out today. Give us your feedback. Our attempt is to give you just the news at 9 o'clock without any of the fuss, no opinion, no drama at 9 p.m. tonight. Leave us your feedback on that as well. Thanks for